Wednesday morning NFL action all over the place yesterday. We even had a head coach firing mid-season right before that team plays the New York Giants and then plays the New York Jets right after that. Some big names being dealt at the trade deadline, including some defensive linemen from the Commanders that, well, one of them at least went to a very good contender in the 49ers. So an interesting day, and we're going to get Daniel Jones on the field. Once again, it was confirmed, and it's going to be a very odd football game because Antonio Pierce, former New York Giant, is going to be coaching the Vegas Raiders at this crucial point in both of their seasons where it could really get ugly for both places. It's already ugly. It could get super ugly for both places, meaning the Raiders and the Giants. Good morning, Boomer. How are you?
Yeah, good morning, G. So when you wake up this morning, you're saying, what just happened? Last night at 10 o'clock Pacific time is when Mark Davis decided, you know what, I've had enough of both Dave Ziegler, the GM, and the head coach, Josh McDaniels, and said goodbye to both of them in I don't know any other way to put it, but shocking. I mean, I know that owners want to win. Owners are impetuous. They can be very impatient. But, this is like bizarro land out there in Vegas with Mark Davis. Look, I'm not saying that Josh McDaniels is the second coming. He certainly isn't, and his record speaks to that. And he's made some very questionable, I would say, personnel decisions along with Dave Ziegler over the last year and a half. But, I mean, this is ridiculous what's gone on out in Vegas. And now Antonio Pierce gets his shot. Mark Davis basically said last night that these guys are interim guys and that there's going to be a full exhaustive search for a new GM and a new head coach. I mean, I don't know what to tell you, but, the NFL owners are, some of them anyway, are a little bit out there.
Well, yeah, he's in a class of his own, though.
Yeah, well, he's right there with Jim Irsay.
Yeah, right.
They're right there at the same, tier level, if you want to put it that way.
What's that tier called?
I don't
that
know.
bleep?
Just goofiness.
Yeah.
Look, I feel bad for guys to get fired, but ultimately you're going to be judged on your performance, and you never know what's going on inside a building. And, you have an unhappy Devontae Adams. You have a Jimmy Garoppolo, who they spent $75 million on. They let their car go. He is flourishing somewhat, starting to flourish in New Orleans now. And, you got to wonder if you're Mark Davis and you're looking at this coach going, wait a minute, you decided this is our quarterback and the other quarterback that we had here is doing this down there. And, so I guess I understand that it happened. I just can't believe that it happened, especially right now.
Oh, I totally believe it. I actually said the other day when we were talking about Mark Davis and the Raiders were having their issues, I said Mark Davis is the type of guy that would fire a coach mid-season like we saw, Nathaniel Hackett get moved on before the end of the year, the previous year out in Denver. So it doesn't surprise me. Maybe the general manager getting blown out mid-season is a little bit surprising because you don't see that as much. But
do you think I'm wondering if he was either trying to trade for somebody or try to trade somebody on their team, and these guys couldn't pull the trigger or they didn't want to do it. And then he decided to say, well, if you're not going to listen to what I want, then you're not going to be here.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. Also, the other reason why I wasn't surprised that this happened, so two instances. One, when Mark Davis was celebrating the Las Vegas Aces parade, there were more people there in the videos that I saw with "Fire Josh" signs than there were "Hey, happy for the Aces" signs. People bombarded that parade with "Fire Josh McDaniels" chants and signs. And he's that type of guy that hears that stuff. He doesn't shut that stuff out. He hears that stuff. And remember back to a couple games ago, it was Monday Night Football, and the camera caught him up there.
Yeah, MFing somebody.
Yeah, and you're such an a-hole, I think.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, something like that.
Like after a questionable coaching decision, and we all assumed that he was talking about Josh McDaniels. So, when I saw this, I was like, well, I thought maybe it'd be the end of the year, but it makes sense to me that Mark Davis said, all right, fine, enough. Everybody's right. I'm firing Josh McDaniels, and we're blowing this thing up, and I don't even care if it's the middle of the season.
He also may be trying to get his team in position to have a top 5 pick. that also
Would
might be
keeping
going
Josh
on here.
McDaniels help that out?
Yeah, you would. I don't know. Maybe not. I think, man. I'll tell you what. This thing turns sour quickly. I mean, this is quick. This is a year and a half.
Yeah. Well, this is 2 major disasters for Josh McDaniels as a head coach. But
I could also say for Indianapolis too. You remember he had the Indianapolis job and then backed out of it.
Right. So it's probably the best thing. Even that Frank Reich era was pretty good for the Colts making the playoffs. Josh McDaniels probably the best thing that ever happened to the Colts, him not going there, because he's been a miserable head coach. Now, what I want to know is, does he immediately go back to the Patriots?
No, I don't see that.
Why not?
I mean, not right now. I mean, he still has 4 years. He signed a 6-year deal with the Raiders. So he has 4 years of
4.5.
We have 4.5 years of fully guaranteed contract that has to be paid by the Raiders.
It's incredible. And now there is some sort of, like, if he gets a coordinator job
somewhere.
and
they have to hire him. So I could see Bill Belichick bringing him back as the quarterback coach.
So they don't have to pay him?
So they don't have to pay him coordinator money.
That's right. Yeah.
So anything that he receives as a coach, anywhere he goes, whether it be college or pros, that would offset what the Raiders owe him, if in fact he does go back. So let's say he goes back, to the Patriots as the offense coordinator next year. They have to pay him a legitimate amount of money for that title. But, if you remember, Bill Belichick had Joe Judge and Matt Patricia calling plays last year.
Right.
Did not give either one of them the title of head coach. And the reason, offense coordinator, and the reason for that is because he saved money. The Giants were paying Joe Judge and the Lions were still paying Matt Patricia.
That's right. And Robert Kraft probably was happy about that and saving some money, because Bill Belichick is the highest paid coach in football. So if you can save some money elsewhere, why not save some money elsewhere?
Man, it's unbelievable that Josh McDaniels failed again like this. It's remarkable. I mean, he was obviously such a great coach in New England with Tom Brady. Like Tom Brady and he, whatever they had going on, I guess it's like Hackett and Aaron Rodgers, but they had it going on for a long, long time. And then they reconnected.
Yeah, and let's not forget, too, the best Mac Jones. The only time Mac Jones looked really, really good for an extended period of time was under Josh McDaniels, as they went to the playoffs that year with him as a rookie. And then he left, and then you had the Joe Judge, Matt Patricia experiment, and things really haven't been the same since. So him and Bill Belichick have something good going on. That's really where he has thrived. Elsewhere, it's just been a mess. Now, maybe another owner would have given him a little bit longer this time around, and maybe they could have turned it around, but there's just too much going on there. You got Davante Adams screaming. Maybe that was the reason why. Maybe that was the thing. We got Davante Adams here who wants out. We're going nowhere. You traded away his buddy. He's pissed off. Let's go ahead and out and get a bunch of picks and try to rebuild this thing, and you weren't able to get rid of this guy. Now we're going to have to deal with that for the rest of the time. So maybe that's what it was.
That could have been like the straw that broke the camel's back, as they say. Maybe, you never know. But the fact that it came on trade deadline day, leads me to believe that maybe there was some difference of opinion about maybe Josh and Ziegler had somebody that wanted Davante Adams, and they were willing to do it, but Mark Davis didn't want to do it.
Yeah, it could have been that.
Could have been that way too. It could have been any of these things. And you're right. I thinking back to that Monday night game and just how upset Mark Davis was at what was happening on the field. I didn't see the Aces parade. I'm sorry, so I didn't see all those signs.
I wasn't like I was watching the Aces parade. It's just
that if you were, I don't care.
No, but I wasn't. It was just up on social media. It's like, here's Mark Davis getting bombarded with fans with "Fire Josh" signs, and then this one guy did all the local news circuit. This one ringleader of the "Fire Josh" brigade did a bunch of media, and that stuff showed up on my Twitter or X feed. So that's how I saw it. But I wasn't sitting there with a bag of popcorn watching the Aces parade.
One other question for you now.
Yeah.
What about the Tom Brady investment?
I don't know how.
Well, first of all, the owners have not agreed to that. They did not pass that.
Yeah, so you're telling me that he's going to be upset now that Josh McDaniels got fired, and he's going to say, I don't want to invest in this team any longer?
Yeah, I don't know. I think money talks, BS walks.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what happens with that. But I will say with the Giants, I would hate this development.
Why?
I would hate it. I'll tell you why. How many times have we seen a team fire an unpopular head coach and then the next week with the interim coach come out and play inspired football?
I'll tell you this. Jeff Saturday did it to these Raiders.
Yeah, right.
His first game as a head coach beat the Raiders. Now, like when you look at who the Raiders have lost to under Josh McDaniels,
Yeah.
they're littered like with crazy games like this. They lost to Tyson Bagent
Yep.
of the Chicago Bears
Right,
2 weeks ago,
Yep.
an undrafted rookie free agent.
Yeah, the Jeff Saturday one was amazing because he was so bad after that. But that's the point. There's like an immediate lift that happens with a team. Now, it doesn't usually sustain, but there's like an immediate lift. And then you get Antonio Pierce, who we know from around here is a very big-time personality. I could see him being a great motivational guy as a coach, and he gets elevated from linebackers coach. I would much rather have the mess that was on their hands and facing that Raider team with Josh McDaniels and a bitching Devontae Adams in a locker room that just got what they wanted with a coach they probably love leading them against his former team.
You know what's amazing to me is that now everybody on that staff in Las Vegas is on the phone trying to set up their next job.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
Rats
that's
off the
basically
ship type of thing,
that's
right?
exactly what happens in the NFL right now. So while it's a very unique opportunity for Antonio Pierce, I hope he does well. But the fact of the matter is that as the owner has said, we're going to go through an extensive search for a new head coach and a new GM. So these guys, unless they take this team like Rich Bisaccia did, he took them to the playoffs.
Well, yeah, I mean,
after John Gruden got fired.
there was another one. There's another one. Another example of this.
Right. So Rich Bisaccia elevated the team. Now the question is can Antonio Pierce? I just don't know with Jimmy Garoppolo. I just don't know.
I mean, does it really matter? You know what I'm saying? Like the Giants have been like so bad at scoring points. I don't even know if it matters who they're facing. I mean, they lost. I mean, I don't know. To me, if it's Aiden O'Connell, if it's Brian Hoyer, if it's Jimmy Garoppolo, whatever. I mean, I just feel like they are going. You know, it was another example. Remember when Dan Campbell took over the Miami Dolphins back in the day?
Yes.
You won a bunch of games then?
Yes.
I mean, these are littered with examples. This is the worst possible week for the Giants to be facing the Raiders. The worst week. And I even thinking if it carries over to the next week, the Jets have to face them then. Like this team was dead in the water, and now all of a sudden there's going to be like, yeah, we got this jerk out of here. Let's go play some football now. That's what's going to happen. Watch. I'm telling you, that's always what happens. So it's a bad situation for not like it hasn't been a bad situation for the Giants as they hang on to Saquon Barkley like we expected that they would because Brian Daboll basically said that they weren't going to trade him. And I would really love to know those conversations between Joe Schoen, Brian Daboll, and John Mara. That's what I'd like to know. I would like to know if Joe Schoen had, pitched trading Saquon Barkley, went in there and said, hey, I got a deal to John Mara and what he said, or if John Mara came and just squashed the whole thing and said, don't take any calls on Saquon Barkley. He's staying here. I want him here. And we see how bad we are without him, and I don't want to trade the guy. I would just love to know the behind the scenes because I feel like, because obviously Saquon Barkley's not a guy that they drafted, not their guy. And they didn't give him the contract extension.
Yeah, well, they not only inherited those guys that are here, but they also inherited the ownership that is here.
Sure, exactly.
And the ownership has very, very strong control of this franchise.
Yeah, so that's why I think there's no real reason for Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen to want to hang on to Saquon Barkley in this rebuild. It's kind of silly if you think about it. So
it's over with now. So I'm sure ownership had something to do with it, but they like their certain types of players, and Saquon fits that. I would think that kind of moniker of who a giant player is in their eyes.
Yeah,
perfectly.
Sure. Same with Daniel Jones. I mean, it's like they cloned Eli Manning without whatever the thing that Eli Manning had to go out there and win and be tough and all those things. Now, I don't say Daniel Jones isn't tough. He has taken a lot of hits and he's gotten up. But it's just, Eli, as quiet as he was, had that thing in big games.
Clutch gene.
Right. And because, he was a Manning and everything else. So Daniel Jones doesn't have that, but hey, he's got an opportunity to change the storyline around him now as he gets an opportunity to play. And Tommy DeVito's going to be the backup.
Yeah. And what I think about like the trade deadline yesterday and some of the moves that were made, obviously the Chase Young one to the 49ers is really interesting. According to different people down in Washington, Chase Young was kind of like, I'm going to do my thing. He didn't follow what his responsibilities were on the field, and they were getting tired of it. But I think going to a place like San Francisco, they're just going to turn him loose and say, "Go get the quarterback." That's what that's what your job is, and that's what we want you to do. And I think they'll fit him in nicely. I don't know. What did you think about Josh Dobbs coming to the Vikings?
I like the fact that they're not just giving up. Josh Dobbs is a great guy. Like he is, you don't have to worry about him coming in. He wants to win. He's finally getting his opportunity, and they played tough with him. I mean, there was a bunch of instances, even though they're 1-7, they were tough. I mean, and he was making plays. So I don't think that Josh Dobbs is going to bring them to any sort of conversation about being a team that could make it to the NFC Championship game. But to me, he was available. He can come in and kind of keep this thing on track so you're not punting the season. And I like the fact that they tried something. And I don't have to worry about Josh Dobbs. This guy is like he's actually a rocket scientist or whatever he is.
He's a smart kid, yes.
And he's such a good dude. And also on top of it, I know desperately that he'd been waiting for an opportunity to play. He got an opportunity to play and impressed enough for another team to want him. So, yeah, I mean, it gives you a little bit of positivity. But what I don't understand is why the Bears, with a lame duck regime, in my opinion, I don't know how are those guys going to keep their jobs.
Well, maybe
traded for Montez Sweat and gave up a second-round pick that they're probably not even going to make
next year.
They
got plenty of picks, just like San Francisco's got plenty of picks. And the reason that San Francisco has so many picks that they can play with is because of their hiring practices. So they do a great job of hiring like minority coaches who go on then to become head coaches themselves, like Rob Saleh and Mike McDaniel.
Yeah.
So those guys end up getting, San Francisco does, draft picks back in return for those guys' successes because they were given a job and an opportunity in San Francisco. So that's within the NFL to kind of, promote and incentivize teams to hire minority coaches. Because then if those minority coaches go on and become a success, then the team where they started from will receive draft compensation.
Yeah, and they have done it right, and they're in the midst of a 3-game losing streak, but still everybody expects them to be there in the end.